9 o'clock at the 54th edition of the Ravenol 24 Hours of the Nürburgring, and we've hit that spell of the race where we've been kind of building up to this, the massively changeable conditions. But the race began with some contact between two Red Bull liveried cars, the Lamborghini that had started from pole position, a collision from the Mercedes number 3, the Verstappen racing car that began in the hands of Danny Juncadella from the outside of the second row. Look at the green and white Lamborghini, though, that car was eventually done for a jump start. Dan Harper going for a rotation after 3 into 1 was not going to go on the exit of the Goodyear Carer. And then the green and white Lambo that led the race at the time, threading its way between two of the tail enders in Startgruppe 3. So 3 different groups, remember, in this race, all individually waved off at 2-minute intervals. Then, actually, there wasn't contact, this is hours ago now, between Kevin Estre and Maximilian Paul, but Paul kind of been spooked into that overtake, which he then repaid to the Frenchman down the Dottingerhoor in these rapid Lamborghinis. Some of them, most of them, are still in the fight. And then Max Verstappen, during his opening stint, got really close, way too close to the barrier as the car jumped from one side of the road to the other, and he actually used the Armco barrier like a snowbank in the Swedish rally to bounce itself back onto the road, and then he took a place on Christian Engelhardt in the number 7 Lamborghini. A huge off, sadly, for one of the Audi SP9 cars after a tyre let go on that 75 AT1 entered car, obliterating the nose of the R8 and leaving debris everywhere. And one of the cars to run through that debris almost immediately was the 84 Red Bull Lamborghini. Huge off as well for Thierry Vermeulen in the Realize Kondo Ferrari on the hats and back. He had to go to the high side of a Porsche Cayman from Cup 3. That put him into the barrier, down the grass, and in very similar fashion to Maro Engels off, although the crash, the impact on the nose coming much later down the run. He ended up heavily in the barriers to the left. And Alexander Sims was in the wars as well, because in an effort to try and recover his R8, and this is how it all happened, he made contact with the KCMG Mercedes, which flipped the nose cover across the windscreen, and he would have to gingerly bring this car back, but sadly straight into retirement. A big highlight for many of the fans so far has been the appearance and now the performance of the BMW Touring M3. There is the 4-time world champion from Formula 1. Now back at the ring, having experienced it on virtual racing, but then competing in a 4-hour race last year in a Ferrari, and having done some NLS races in 2026 as well. Off on oil, not his own oil, but Kevin Estre. A big retirement that we can officially say, because that's the money end of the Grello Porsche banging into the barrier as it lost it on oil that you can't really see on the road surface, but with thanks to many of our TV staff here, they discovered precisely which car had spilt its innards, the life fluids of said Porsche. And then the next victim at the very same corner was Arjun Maini, losing the rear of the Mustang. It then gained grip and at virtually 90 degrees, heavily into the barrier, destroying one of the 3 HRT Ford Mustangs. And this, unfortunately, was the culprit, spreading oil down at Brunchen, and Kevin Estre and Arjun Maini, the unwitting victims of that. 2 cars retiring as a result. An epic scrap, a 3-way dice between Jules Gounon's Mercedes, Fabian Schiller's Mercedes, and Connor De Filippi in the BMW M3 Touring. De Filippi managed to pull off 2 overtakes in the space of about 4 corners to the high side of the Red Bull-backed Verstappen Racing Mercedes. He would then pick off the Ravenol car down into the foxhole. And this car's been grabbing headlines for the best part of a year after it was an April Fool in 2025. And BMW have sort of been convinced to actually build the thing eventually. And it's been featuring inside the top 4 over the last hour. Then a really good battle between the 2 Mercedes side by side. They are team cars. And Lucas Auer plugged into these now wet shod cars, getting the jump on Fabian Schiller.